Okay.
And we are live with another episode of the Keeg Talks. Today, the Keeg Talks DC Studios, because the hierarchy of the DC universe has changed, and not in the way that The Rock had hoped. Or maybe in the way that The Rock had hoped. I don't know.
I think he kind of did hope this. I feel like his sensibility lines up more with the new hierarchy than the previous one.
We'll see.
I would agree with that.
We'll see. I'm your host, Demetri Pereira, and if you're listening to our voices and can see our faces, you know who's been talking. You know where you can find them on social media, and that's because you're watching us live streaming this on twitch.tv/The Keeg Show and youtube.com/The Keeg Show. But if you can't, then you're listening to our voices and you can't see our faces or the cool backgrounds that I made, and that's okay. You know, digest us however you want, but that's because you're listening to our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm your host, Demetri Pereira, and I brought on two awesome guests to talk about DC Studios with me. First, you may know him as Trevor Copter. Everybody on the streets does, you know.
Oh, the streets are like
on the streets,
teeming with people who know me by that
They're
name.
like, hey, you heard about that Trevor Copter guy?
Yeah.
You know, we got Trevor Reese,
around.
everybody.
Hey. I'm excited to talk DC films.
Yeah, and you came dressed as Chucky.
Oh yeah, it's Halloween, so I wore my Chucky costume that I wore last night because I still have a little bit of makeup that wouldn't come off when I tried to wipe off my face this morning.
I went dressed as Rigby from Regular Show.
Oh, nice.
I've been mulling that idea for years, and now I finally did it. Not to 100% that I wanted. I wanted a raccoon snout. I wanted to make have one, but I was looking at all different types of like animal snout mask things, and I was like, they don't look right, until I found one that I was like, it is perfect. I'll recolor it, but it had built-in mouse teeth, and I'm like, Rigby doesn't have teeth like that. So I was very let down.
I mean, perfection is terrible. You're slave to it.
Yeah. Well, speaking about, I was going to say speaking about perfection because she does cosplay, but perfection in general, we got Kaylin Dorothy, a.k.a. Comics by Kaylin. Kaylin, it's your first time. What's up? How's it going?
It is. This is my first podcast ever, so I apologize in advance. Yeah, I've never been on a podcast before, so this is very new and very exciting.
How have you discussed like comic books and pop culture in the past?
I just approach unsuspecting victims.
Okay.
I think it's a detriment. I think it speaks. There's a lot of great podcasts out there, but the fact that they haven't gotten you on one, and that this is the first, you know, I mean, that's not a plus in their corner.
Yeah, I just, on my TikTok page, I really just enjoy talking about the characters and movies that I love, and sometimes dressing up as them.
Yeah.
And I'm clearly repping the Bat fam today.
Yeah, with your background too.
That's a Tim Burton, right? That's not.
Yeah, I think this is from the animated series, and then the shirt is Babstar.
Okay.
Wait, Babstar does shirts too?
Yeah. Oh my God. She has stickers, pins, prints, bags, earrings, and shirts. I actually bought this earlier this month at Comic-Con from her.
Is that what she did before? Is that what brought her to prominence and then DC snatched her up?
Yeah, I think she was just kind of working as an illustrator, and she was approached by DC to work on Batgirl, and she had actually never worked in comics before. So the original layouts in the first couple issues were done by Cameron Stewart, who was one of the artists, one of the writers on that comic. Yeah. So he'd do the layouts, she'd go in with her final art, and as she got more and more used to it, then she just kind of started from scratch herself. And that's actually where I fell in love with comics was her work on Batgirl.
Oh yeah, that's a good series. That was like the perfect thing because it was acknowledging the fact that like the New 52 had like revitalized her and taken her out of the wheelchair, taken her out of Oracle. But then it's just like, well, okay, we did that. We did what fans have been asking for, but for what? Like, what has making Barbara Gordon Batgirl meant? Like, what are we going to say about it? Why is she in the costume again? Like, what's the importance of it? And, like, I think Babstar did a really good job. To the point, like, the WB Discovery merger's biggest hit was, oh, we lost him again.
It's all right. Can you
Oh
hear me?
no.
Oh, we can hear
Yeah, we
you,
can still hear you.
but we can't see you.
There we go.
There he is.
Cool.
But,
Keep
like,
talking. Don't worry about
The
me.
Babs Tar, like in the sense of like Ed Brubaker, like led to Winter Soldier, the Matt Fraction basically being the foundation of Hawkeye. Like the Babs Tar Batgirl was gonna be the cinematic Batgirl for the DCEU, and that's really speaks to how impactful that was.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that topic later, but I cried that day. And yeah, I mean, I think her work is so unique and interesting. And you know, I had loved superheroes since I was 7, and I had read some graphic novels, but I hadn't really delved into the world of comics until I picked up Batgirl of Burnside, and I immediately went back and read the entirety of the New 52 run, you know, written by Gail Simone. And I think Barbara Gordon is just one of the best characters I think I've ever read. I personally find her very relatable, and she's such a great character.
Have you gone pre-52?
I've read some, not a ton. My comics knowledge is not nearly as extensive as some people. I've read mostly more modern stuff. I picked up comics for the first time right around the time that DC Rebirth had launched. So I kind of started most of my. It was kind of perfect.
It was getting better
I walked in. I literally walked into a comic book store and I was like, "Hey, these are the characters that I'm interested in, and I've never really read comics before." And he's like, "Okay, perfect timing. Here's issue 1 of everything."
That's great they were open to that. Because I feel like a lot in the comic book community are like, we've been around for years, bow to us. You're new, we're going to treat you like shit. And that's comics, DC Comics, indie comics, Marvel comics, like whatever.
Well, even on a good day, it is just like there are hundreds of issues behind it. Like I had a friend who was getting into it around Siege. Like Siege Marvel? And Original Sin in terms of Marvel stuff. And it's just like, oh boy, like it is a literal through line of events and storylines that have like dominated this whole comic like publishing company. And it's just like, yeah, there are just moments. It's just like, yeah, you kind of just
it's intimidating.
Yeah.
I
remember Kathy, she ran the comic book store that I went to when I was in college. And I was like lamenting when the New 52 was starting. I'm just like, oh, you know what this means is, although I was eventually proven wrong, like, oh, like Action Comics isn't going to hit 1,000. And she's like, and she just plainly said, like, well, then where are the people who are reading issue 947 or whatever? Like, where are those people now? Like, they're going to be pulled back in with a new number 1, like a new starting point. Like, you can come back now. And so it sort of speaks to that, like, eventually you kind of just need it. Like Marvel has sort of adopted like a seasonal thing.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, like
renumbering.
Yeah, like stuff gets renumbered and then they go back to legacy numbering and then they go back to new number 1 and then just sort of alternate. But it is like, you know, eventually like it's just a matter of runs. It's a matter of comic book runs.
Here's the thing. As we draw on our comic knowledge, like DC Studios, I have to shift it back to a little bit to DC Studios, but like there's a lot of like comic book content, right? Out there right now, and the way I see it is like Marvel has like been dominating the movie sphere for a while now, to the point where like as someone who grew up with DC Comics, and again, anyone who didn't grow up with DC Comics but is into DC Comics, that's fine. Big point of this show and like the Keeg in general is that like,
it's fine. You're okay.
What's up? What?
No, you're just the way you're just like, it's fine if you had done this. Just like you're okay if you
started yesterday, if you started DC 5 years
films,
ago, if you started 15 years ago, whatever. If you're a fan, you're a fan. But I feel like DC Comics and DC related content lost a whole generation. That's my opinion. And now with this like DC Studios thing, there's a hope that like they might be able to recapture that energy, because there's a lot of amazing characters. Batgirl being one of them, who was sidelined and axed, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But like, it sucks that it's taken them so long to kind of figure things out, and hopefully this is them figuring it out, because James Gunn and Peter Safran are hopefully the Kevin Feige's of DC Studios, and they won't have Warner Brothers meddling. But then again, was DC Films supposed to be that as well? Because that's what it was called before.
Yeah, they've been rebranding and re-cementing things. Because like, let's not forget, before the DCEU, before Man of Steel, like I remember distinctly being at Comic-Con when Green Lantern was announced, and the plans they had for it to build to Blackest Night as like the trilogy capper. It's just like, you're gonna make 3 films and expect me to have any sort of like emotional connection to Blackest Night with 3 films worth of characters and backstory and lore? Like, you're just gonna jump to that? And like, we've seen it with like Man of Steel jumping to Dark Knight Returns, and then Death of Superman, like all the stuff they have burned through really, really quickly before. Like, but also like, what's so frustrating about DC Films is the fact that the Arrowverse very, very competently built towards Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like, it's only limited by its budget. Like, the scope of it and the storytelling of it was on par with what Marvel was doing with like, oh hey, we brought back Patrick Stewart, and we brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Like, DC brought back Burt Ward. They brought back
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy was featured in an episode.
Yeah.
Brandon Routh got to play Superman.
I got to ask Kevin Conroy about that experience when I was at Terrificon this summer.
What'd he say?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you ask?
So I was at Terrificon. I, of course, went as Batgirl. And I cried a lot throughout that day because I was so excited to be meeting my Batman. But during the panel, the whole panel was just a Q&A for him and other voice actors from the DCAU. And I asked, after 30 years of voicing this character, what was it like to step into the role in live action? I think I have a video of his full answer on my TikTok, but if I recall somewhat correctly, obviously that version of Bruce was very, very different than any Bruce we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
This Bruce was broken. He had lost all hope for humanity. He didn't care about anyone anymore. But he said it was still very, very cool to play even some version of him in live action.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, even though it was such a different take, that they gave him iconic stuff to work with the fact that, like, he's in the Kingdom Come suit. Like, he's in that, like, exoskeleton thing to help him walk. And, like, the fact that they gave him stuff to work within to, like, still be iconic, even though, it is such a departure of any Bruce that he's even played or, like, we've even seen. Like, they still gave him, like, but it is still Batman, even though he's broken.
Yeah.
Like,
did he kill Superman in his universe?
Yeah.
That was the thing, right?
And he was gonna kill Supergirl, and then
Batwoman
Kate Kane showed up, and she's like, "And I'm gonna stop you." And then it was revealed that she was actually the paragon of, I think, justice. But like, like they like, and they even had like fun casting with like the fact that like John Cryer is Lex Luthor when he was Lenny Luthor in Superman 4. Like, and the fact that he was awesome in it. Like, the fact that the DC films have, and like this has been like their MO from the jump. Like, so much of like the TV shows have been like limited by what's available to them because of the ambition of DC films. When DC TV, both animated and live action, have very much provided very good roadmaps on how to create shared universes that are beloved. Like
here's my question. Yeah, sorry.
All right. Well, DCAU is more beloved than the MCU, I would say.
Right. And
like pound for pound,
here's
Bruce
my
Timm's
question.
more beloved than Kevin Feige.
Here's my question: is first thing, we have 3 animated separate universes. We have the Timverse.
Mhm.
We have the DC animated movie universe,
which is good too.
Yeah, and then we have Young Justice, which now
so good.
So
Keeg.
yeah, historically, DC has been very, very shrewd and selfish with their embargoes. If anyone remembers back in Justice League Unlimited, they couldn't use Black Manta, so they made Devil Ray. They couldn't use Bat-related villains because Batman Begins was coming out. They couldn't use Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, like any one of those, right?
Yeah.
And so it really hindered them with their embargoes because their embargoes were in service of movies. And I have an answer to this question that I want to pose to you guys. We'll do Kaylin first and Trevor. Why do you think DC can create competent cartoons and TV, but fails on many occasions? Let's just say it's a 50-50 shot to make competent movies.
Generous.
Let's even say past the point of Batman, because Batman is always kind of universally liked, the movie.
But 89?
Yeah.
Like, do we have a specific Batman bar we're establishing? Like,
what? For what?
Just for whatever your hypothetical or whatever it is.
The question is, like, why does DC make competent is better at making competent TV and animation versus movies? Because people are constantly talking about, like you just said, if they can do it in the TV, why can't they do it in the movies? People are constantly saying, if they did the DC animated movie universe, why can't they do that in the movies? Why can't they seem to get the movies right? And I don't want to bash on everything DC, that's why I was given a percentage. But what do you think is the difference? Kaylin?
I wish I knew what the difference is, because it baffles me. Do you have, when you said you have an answer, is that your like personal answer, or like you have an actual definitive answer?
I don't think there's a definitive answer. I do have
okay.
one that I think is correct, but it's only my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like maybe it has to do with the people they're putting behind these projects. You know, I feel like when I watch any of the animated projects, you can tell that the people involved who are writing the stories and, you know, creating everything have actually spent time learning about these characters, reading about these characters, possibly have read some comics themselves that they're pulling directly from. You can tell they actually care. And I feel like when I'm watching the movies, sometimes it's like maybe you read about Batman in an article, or you read somewhere about Superman, but have you actually read a Superman comic or watched anything else that Superman's been in?
Yeah, Zack Snyder has some quotes that make him really misunderstand superheroes to the point where why does he get the superhero reigns? He's made some really weird quotes.
I feel like I've seen stuff done by Zack Snyder that I really enjoyed and worked so well. And then I've watched other projects and I'm like, but why? Did you do any research on this character before you proceeded with this? And I don't know. He's very hit or miss.
Yeah. Wait, what's your favorite Zack Snyder movie?
I actually really enjoyed Watchmen. I remember back in the early days of the pandemic, I sat down and read Watchmen all the way through, and I loved it. That's probably one of my favorite stories. And I thought the movie actually did a fairly accurate job of adapting it. Obviously, certain storylines had to be cut because it was such a heavy book. There was so much in there. They changed the ending, and I understand why they changed the ending. I can't decide if I like it more or less than the original comic, but I think it worked more in like a realistic sense why they changed it.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was a fairly accurate adaptation, and I feel like they really captured the tone of the original comic. So I thought that worked really well. I also surprisingly did enjoy the Snyder cut of Justice League. I didn't think I would like it nearly as much as I did.
Yeah. Okay. I watch we can go down a hole on Watchmen. I liked Watchmen as a movie, but like it just hits different from a comic, like than the comic, because the comic was an exploration of the medium and the medium's history. And in my opinion, like, if you're doing a Watchmen movie, then it should be an exploration on the superhero movie industry and exploration on that medium. Watchmen, the TV show that came out on HBO Max, was a lot better. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't
I did.
Snyder,
it was so good.
But like,
no.
I thought it worked really well.
And that worked as a sequel to the comic, not the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just, because I know Dr. Derpy, I told Dr. Derpy on Twitch that we wouldn't be able to get to all his comments, but...
well, what does he have to say?
But basically, it's not necessarily... Okay, it's not necessarily fitting with what we're saying, but basically, it's the common concern that, like, if DC needs to do DC movies, then they have to follow the Marvel route, which we won't get into right now, but we'll get to, like, do you have to follow the Marvel route? I think that's a general question. I do want to quote a Snyder quote that he made back in 2008 when he was... Is this
a quote of why he should not have been given the keys to Superman quote, or...
this is Batman related.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is from 2008, where he was speaking about Watchmen. During the interview with Entertainment Weekly, he revealed how he had different ideas than Chris Nolan, who directed Batman Begins. He said, everyone says that about Batman Begins, Batman's dark. I'm like, okay, no, Batman's cool. He gets to go to a Tibetan monastery and be trained by ninjas. Okay, I want to do that, but he doesn't, like, get raped in prison. That could happen in my movie.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about dark, that's how that would go.
And that just shows what his vision of dark is. Like, it is bargain basement. Like, you know what I got into recently was the HBO Spawn show, and that is edgelord, like, bullshit stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, you want dark. This is dark. Like, dark is the stuff dark is taboo. Dark is the stuff we don't talk about. It's like, no, Christopher Nolan showed us what dark was, and that is what humanity is capable of given the right ingredients, which is Batman Begins. It's humanity is capable of becoming Batman, and then the Dark Knight is humanity is also capable of becoming the Joker. Like, that's what true darkness is. And Snyder's version of dark is like, oh, you want dark? I'm gonna have this. I'm gonna make Dawn of the Dead, and this baby's gonna crawl out of this woman. That's dark.
It's
the Timverse was dark. Batman the Animated Series was dark, and is a great example of how you can do something dark and still, in a weird way, be, for the most part, family friendly.
It's dark because it's dark because it's not nihilistic. But, like, it just shows despair and sadness. Does not. Yeah, Bruce Timm does not shy away from, like, the immense. Like, Batman is sad. Like, he's not angry. He's sad.
Yeah,
and that's the darkness Bruce Timm brought in.
Yeah,
of just like, guys, we're gonna have a big cry over this.
I'm reading an article basically stating that Snyder seems to think that basically his idea was superheroes would be morally bankrupt dicks in real life. I believe that's a quote.
Which is The Boys. We got
it.
The Boys is doing that better.
Right?
Yeah.
Or Watchmen that he was working on. And it seems to me that, like, Snyder wants this to apply to all superheroes. And here's a quote that he finishes, it's the article says he finishes off the full quote by saying, if you think superheroes wouldn't be doing all manner of unethical shit, quote unquote, you're living in a fucking dream world. This is a Snyder.
But that's the point. It's a dream world.
It is a dream world.
It's a fantasy. That's the point.
Yeah.
You know, if I want the commentary, I'll go watch The Boys. The Boys is, I think, one of the best written shows I've ever watched. I'm rewatching it currently with my roommate. Yep. And, you know, I love the commentary that show brings. But when I want to watch Batman, I want to watch Batman. I want the fantasy.
Also,
I want that escapism.
The Boys show is good because it's smart. The comic, I constantly say, it's the one comic I will actively advise people not to read.
The The comic is Zack Snyder dark. Like
it is. No, it's more. It's
bleak.
Dahmer dark, dude.
It's like that's what I think what people don't realize, especially when they look at like Alan Moore and Frank Miller, who are patient zero for grim and gritty comics, is that neither of those men in their prime with their writing are nihilistic. They are dark and they are asking the darkest questions about these environments, but they're not nihilistic about it. And I think what Garth Ennis did with The Boys and what Zack Snyder has done with a lot of his stuff is being nihilistic about it. Of like,
without being smart.
Yeah, it's like, no, there is no way humanity has any capability of wielding these powers with any sort of responsibility unless they go to such extremes as killing Zod. I have to kill Zod to realize I shouldn't kill. Like that was Snyder's argument for the Man of Steel controversy.
You got to touch the stove before you realize that you shouldn't, because you'll burn yourself.
Like that's not...
I've never touched a stove in my, like a fire like that in my life. I never put my finger in a socket. I know, like, like you don't have to. I mean, some people have to. I get it, but like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, go to if you want real like bleak, but like not horrendous stuff, is like look at Alan Moore's Miracle Man.
Right.
Like with what he did with like that was power corrupting someone to their very soul, and yet it's still thrilling and still ultimately optimistic. The hero still does win out, but it is a hard victory and scars are left. Like
I think dark and edgy only matters if you have a point behind it. V for Vendetta as a comic, right? Well, there's a point, and it's a reflection of the times, and you're using your comics to kind of show Watchmen as well, right? As a comic. But when you do things like Zack Snyder, like, what's the point other than just to say, I want Batman to be assaulted in prison? What is the point of that? It's just what
that's it.
Real.
That's the point. The point is that is Batman getting assaulted.
For the sake of darkness. It's just
right.
It's exploitive. It makes me feel super icky.
So
but Batman's Adam West too. Like that's what pisses me off about it. Like about like the nihilistic stuff about it is just like Adam West is as valid, if not more valid, a Batman than Batfleck.
It's taken me a long time to respect Adam West's Batman, but he's not my Batman. It's an interpretation of Batman, right? And that's
he's kind of my Batman.
I mean,
like
I've seen that show.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite take on Batman. You know, I grew up with Batman the Animated Series, and I kind of relate every version back to that. So I don't love that portrayal, but I also have such deep respect for what his portrayal went on to do for the character. You know, I mean, I feel like we wouldn't have Batman the way he is today if it weren't for Batman 66.
Yeah.
But like, I think it says a lot.
We also got Barbara Gordon because of that show.
Yeah, Barbara Gordon,
in Black Catwoman.
Yep.
But like that, like it says so much about the character that Adam West Batman isn't breaking Batman nearly as much as Zack Snyder's violent Batman. Like it says something about who the character is and their resiliency that Adam West fits more into the archetype than Affleck did. But like Affleck did it at times, but like the way Snyder wanted to do him, especially BVS, like that Batman like is just like broken and like dark and like
with modern superhero movies, right? I mean, it used to be that like WB really I should probably say my theory on what it is, but WB seems to bank hard on Batman and Batman related properties, yet keep things on the back burner for other heroes, which is, it's weird. My theory for why animated and TV show content seems to do better is because it has less meddling from the higher ups. And the reason it has less meddling from the higher ups, the people who don't know the comics, don't know the sources, aren't passionate about it. They just want a quick buck, and they want to be the name attached to the big movie. It's because they don't view TV and animation to be important. They don't view it to be the creme de la creme. They want a movie that's more glamorous, right? So you get Warner Brothers executives, they're constantly putting their hands in the pot, moving things around, getting things dirty, taking out things that are needed and putting in things that aren't needed. Greenlighting projects that we don't need and not pushing forward projects that we do need. People are always like, why don't we just give Bruce Timm a live action movie? They will not do it because they do not respect animation. And why don't they make the Arrow Grant Gustin be whatever? Regardless of anyone's opinion on that, they're not going to put a TV actor to the movies. Yep. There's just this weird thing with the execs. Now, what Kevin Feige does with Marvel is like, he's able to do that without any meddling, and that's the hope that hopefully James Gunn and Peter Safran have with DC Studios. And we can hope, because DC Films was supposed to be that under Hamada, but we still got meddling. Yeah. And Peter Safran, I don't know if you got, like, I posted a TikTok about it. Peter Safran started off doing parody movies with Scary Movie. He was the producer of Scary Movie, but then he went on to do, like, the dumb parody movies, which is fine. I can't fault him for that. They were, like, easy bucks. Then he went on to do horror movies, like The Conjuring and whatnot. He was producing a lot of those. A lot. And then he started producing DC movies, some of the better ones. Shazam, Aquaman, he's doing the upcoming Blue Beetle.
And I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
Him and Gunn have a previous relationship.
The Suicide Squad.
Yeah. I was going to say, they worked on Suicide Squad.
And Peacemaker. And so that, like, that whole thing. So, like, they have an established relationship.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, I mean, I think what really separates the good stuff from the bad is the understanding of comics are serialized.
Right.
Like, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, they can exist on their own. They were built to exist on their own. They have foundations. They have full casts. They have full rogues gallery. They have powers and storylines that they do not need other people to interfere with them. Mm-hmm. Everyone else is built on the shared universe and the shared coming together of ideas that they do need that. They do need the serialized adventures. They aren't as full archetypes as Batman or Superman or Spider-Man. And, like, the understanding of serialization, I think that's what Kevin Feige also understood. It's like, yes, make a good standalone issue, but understand that this issue is one in a series, that you are telling a longer story. But, like, he found the balance of servicing the individual project while making sure it was established that it's in a larger world.
Right.
And understand that is comic books. Comic books are a monthly soap opera story, and the people who have really understood that are the people who have succeeded with that.
Well, that's why, and Killen, I want to know your thoughts about this. That's why, like, it's weird when DC tries to do the most iconic stories without working their way up to it. We got Death of Superman. We got Dark Knight Returns. We're trying to get Flashpoint in the first Flash movie.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I don't, like, longevity is key here. Kevin Feige does it in Marvel, where he'll take, like, even a name, Age of Ultron. It was not the Age of Ultron comic. Or he'll take Civil War and he'll change things. And it won't be Civil War exactly, but it will be. And we can move the Marvel Studios along and, like, the MCU and kind of have that longevity. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I feel like Marvel, they know how to make it work. You know, they, like you said, they take the basic idea from a big story, and then they create their own in a way that fits into their universe. And I feel like DC, definitely with some of their movies, they're trying to too closely adapt those existing stories. And also, why are we jumping into Flashpoint with the first Flash movie?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's one of my favorite comics.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give the casual viewer, there's people like me who are obsessed. I know this stuff.
Right.
But it doesn't give that casual viewer who hasn't read comics a chance to get to know this character, but before being thrown into one of the most intense stories they've ever gone through.
Well,
It's like a TV pilot. A TV pilot of a show is supposed to introduce everybody to like the basic premise of the show, the kind of style. You don't throw your characters through like trials and tribulations in the first episode because you have to show them on their like normal or semi-normal day, unless it's a catalyst for what the rest of the series holds. But you introduce their cast of characters, whatnot. But we haven't gotten that with the Flash, and I don't know what we're getting in Flashpoint. Dr. Derpy is writing out their whole treatments for how they would run DC Studios.
Nice.
We won't be able to get to the nitty gritty because it's here, but the basic thing is that Flashpoint will rewrite the universe, keeping some actors and then getting rid of some actors and some storylines. Is it too much?
Are we getting a different Flash actor?
We're gonna have to get a different Flash actor.
Yeah, I like they could possibly keep Ezra Miller on after everything they've done.
I mean, it's DC is blinded by the fact that the New 52 was started on Flashpoint, and their the DC animated universe, the movie universe, was started with Flashpoint and ended with a Flashpoint too. It's like it's bookended by Flashpoints, and but the show didn't hit Flashpoint until season 3, and also fucked it up. But this, DC's problem has just been their impatience. If they had played it right, if they had played the same Marvel game, they would have been primed for their Age of Ultron the same summer that Endgame would have happened.
Yeah.
They would and we.
Why did we get Justice League as the third movie?
Yeah, and and we've seen how much Marvel has lost its footing with fans and arguably with their storytelling post Endgame. That if DC had been patient and smart and played the Marvel game at the time they were starting, not trying to catch up to where Marvel was at the moment they started, they would have been primed for something really great post Endgame to take the torch of just these motherfuckers are fumbling, this whole multiverse saga. I don't know about it. They could have really been sitting pretty and built up to, oh my God, Superman might go bad in this next Justice League. He might fall to Darkseid after 2 Justice Leagues of him being a fucking stand-up guy and really seeing the test of his mettle and seeing the test of his goodness and seeing a Captain America level journey for him, because Captain America spits in the face of Snyder's Superman. Of just that is a good man without having to try.
And he's still a badass, because people constantly
he's still a badass,
say Superman's
and it's still
not
America's
cool,
ass.
He's boring.
But
Captain America has those same qualities.
Chris Evans fucking knocked it out.
Oh my God.
People who say, you can't do a Chris Reeves Superman anymore. That's what Chris Evans did. I
mean, he was just perfect.
Didn't sacrifice quality of character, quality of acting, nothing was sacrificed. And yet he was a decent man.
Yeah.
Very decent man.
Yeah. The thing that Marvel did was they spent their time because they weren't sure it was gonna hit, right? Iron Man was an experiment. They were like, let's do this. Let's have it almost as it's a standalone movie.
They put it all on the line.
Scene. Yeah.
It was Marvel. Marvel was in bankruptcy, just got out of it, and it was just doubled down.
Let's use the heroes we do.
And they didn't have access. And they didn't have access to any of their major characters.
Yeah.
They'd sold them all.
Iron Man
was not a bankable character.
He was
he's not even B-list before that.
But had just brought him up to higher tier with Civil War. Civil War had just hit when they did the Iron Man movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Civil War was 2006, 2007, and Iron Man hit 2008. So he had,
not to mention they hired. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh no.
I looked it up.
I was gonna say, not to mention they hired Robert Downey Jr., who at that point couldn't get a job to save his life.
Yeah. like they had to like get extra insurance. Like they had problems getting him cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we forget how that was such a gamble.
Yeah.
So like to the point like Marvel would have failed. Marvel Comics
Yeah.
would have been gone had that movie failed.
And this is before the DC buy. Like DC bought them because they were profitable. They were doing the movies and the movies had potential. They're progressing with that momentum.
The Disney buy, you mean?
Sorry, what did I say? DC?
You said the DC
DC.
buy.
Oh, sorry, I meant
But it's
Disney.
like
I meant Disney.
what
Yeah.
what earth
Yeah.
are we on right now?
I meant Disney. But what
Yeah.
Marvel did was introduce a solo character with a supporting cast and a villain, right? They did it with Iron Man. They did it with Incredible Hulk. They did it with Thor. They did it with Iron Man 2, Captain America. Then, boom,
Yep.
Avengers. Then they start making more risks, right? Giving us Guardians of the Galaxy. Because they
Who would have
earned
thought
that.
a Guardians movie?
And that's why I say that DC
And James
has
Gunn
lost
was a risk, too.
has lost a generation. Because kids nowadays can get Rocket fucking Raccoon on their backpack. Do we get
Yep.
do we get Booster Gold on a backpack? That's like Booster Gold is
No.
a higher profile
God,
character.
if they made a Booster
in
Gold
DC.
movie, I'd be so happy.
Booster Gold's a higher profile DC character than Rocket Raccoon is in Marvel, or at least was.
Oh, really?
At
By
the
far.
time, yeah.
Rocket
By far,
Raccoon was
yeah.
barely used.
I've only read a couple like Marvel.
Yeah.
From Marvel. I've really only read House of M,
Yeah.
Spider-Gwen, and Daredevil. I
What Daredevil?
everything I know Marvel. What?
What Daredevil?
I can't remember exactly who the writer was. The artist was Ron Garney. And I'll be honest, I picked that up because Ron Garney's actually my cousin.
Oh.
Okay. I think that's
So I was
newer.
like, hey, my cousin's an artist. Let me check that
I
out.
think that's a newer one. So I think
Yeah.
Ron Garney came on like post Mark Wade run.
It's black.
Yeah, I
it looks like
think
the
it was
black
like
and red suit.
2015. Yeah, it was black and
Yeah.
red.
Yeah,
It was
okay,
like
yeah.
the 10 Fingers or something was the bad guy.
Yeah, that's post Secret War.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. This
pseudo
is
world reboot.
it's the one where they had the he had the sidekick Blind. His name's not Blindside. He kind of had like that the one guy. I forget. He was an Asian character. But yeah,
It's been a minute since I read it.
basically Guardians of the Galaxy were a Z-list Marvel team that would only
Whoa.
pop up when there were space adventures to do.
And like the second iteration of them too. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
second version and like like in the moment more popular because they were more recent, but like overall less known than their original counterpart because they're the originally the Guardians are the Legion of Superheroes. They're the Marvel team 1,000 years in the future.
Original, yeah.
Yeah, that's where Yondu comes from.
That's so wild to me because they seem like the kind of perfect comic book characters because they're such a ragtag team of just total weirdos
Yeah,
that get tossed together.
yeah.
And obviously it worked so well for the movie. And I can just see how that would work really well in comics.
I mean, it
surprises me they weren't as popular.
It was a full reboot that we got from them. Dan Abnett and Lanning. They had just done, ironically, a really solid Legion of Superheroes run, and then were brought on to sort of handle Marvel's cosmic side, and they did the Annihilation series, which is like this like big cosmic event set in like the far reaches of like Marvel space. And that's where that version of the Guardians of the Galaxy first formed. But like
Oh, cool.
Drax, like it's also like Drax was like he is originally
A jazz saxophonist.
well, yeah, and like his soul is put into the Drax body.
Yeah.
Like it's like bonkers weird Jim Starlin stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And like
He was
and
a human
Gamora,
who died in a car crash, and his soul went into the body of Drax. The human part had like just a basic name, and he was a jazz saxophonist.
Yeah, and he wears like this like crazy hood
With
cape
like
thing.
a cowl that's like Vision with a skull
that like
on
came
the,
down like
on the
full,
cape.
just
I think he was
bonkers.
was he an update of the World War II destroyer
He might have been. I don't know.
from Marvel Comics?
But like that's like to show like what Abnett and Lanning did, and then James Gunn, and hopefully he'll bring this to DC. But like it's getting to the root of these characters and figuring out how to service them where you're not destroying the core of the character, but also understanding that you're modernizing and updating the characters to fit into a modern world. Because
Yeah.
how much like golden age stuff has to be so massaged into like being able to fit nowadays into modern storytelling.
Which is why superhero movies have a little bit more killing. Like I feel like there's just a difference in morality now than there was back then. Kaylin, were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say that, I think one of the big mistakes that DC is doing is they keep trying to make the movies out of the big major players. Whereas, James Gunn, he was like, hey, let's do Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm really hoping he'll do that with DC. When you do Superman and Batman, those movies have been made 100 times now. Everybody knows them. Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
And usually a really, really strong opinion on how those characters should be portrayed. But when you pull from, the bottom of the pile and say, hey, let's make a movie out of this random character that maybe a couple people care about, you have so much more freedom to play with that character and create a story and introduce them to a new audience.
Let's talk about James Gunn. Let's talk about him. He started off as sort of a punk alternative kind of comedic filmmaker.
He's a Trauma. Yeah.
Right. So Trevor, I know, is a big fan. And then he got tapped to do Guardians after, having a whole, like, he already had his experience as a filmmaker.
He had done like 3 movies at that point. Slither.
He did Slither. That one with Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
Super.
Super.
Yes.
He had done that. And then I want to say there's a 3rd movie, but I can't recall what it is. But also he wrote Scooby-Doo 1 and 2. He didn't direct them, but he wrote it.
Yeah. And then he gets tapped to do Guardians. It's a ragtag team. It's separate than the Marvel kind of storylines that were going on because he could kind of do his own thing, maybe touch a little on Thanos that was coming up. And it was a bunch of characters that he reinterpreted to serve the purpose of the plot, which, again, nobody was married to the Guardians.
Yeah.
Like the Guardians as a comic idea. They were like space cops. It was just kind of like especially Star-Lord, he had an element gun. Like it wasn't important. He changed a lot of it. And like then the comics changed. They kind of brought in a lot of movie elements to kind of push them forward. But it was a smash hit, right? Guardians.
Yeah.
And people wanted more and more. And
Guardians is the reason I started watching Marvel.
Guardians?
Yeah. I had watched like the first 2 Thors, but I wasn't invested in Marvel. And then I watched Guardians. I was like, okay, I need to go back and watch everything.
Yeah. Just kind of like WandaVision got a lot of people interested, like people who hadn't even watched any Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
WandaVision got them in. And it is a specific demographic. I know so many women who got into Marvel because of WandaVision. Because WandaVision gave them something that they wanted, as opposed to the normal, Incredible Hulk. Like, we don't, it spoke to them in a way that wasn't speaking earlier.
Marvel.
I was obsessed with WandaVision.
Oh, yeah. So good. But Marvel
it's my favorite.
Marvel has the ability to adapt more so than DC, I feel. DC deals in archetypes and Marvel deals with stories. Not to like belittle what DC does, but like the way they build their stuff, like Marvel can adapt to being more stuff like that. Like we see like even Spider-Verse, like how different that was, but also the various interpretations of Spider-Man and seeing that. And also like basically seeing that as an answer to Lego Batman, because Lego Batman kind of had a lot of the same things. Like we're gonna call back everything about Batman that you've seen so far in the lore and the legends, and like build out from that. But I think Marvel just because of like it coming from like the 60s and Stan Lee having a sort of more publisher mindset of like, fuck it, just like adapt it to whatever. Like it's about selling stuff. It's about like, cause like through the 50s, they were just chasing trends the entire time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so Marvel is very adaptable because all of their staff kind of had to do everything because Martin Goodman just wanted them to chase the trends of what was popular. They were always playing catch up for so long. And now the movies, ironically, are what are setting the tone for it.
And it brings up to mind what the difference between like a dramatization of a comic versus a adaptation. An adaptation is a reinterpretation, right? And DC tends to either go too far or too small with their adaptation. They, you know, things that don't necessarily fit. Now, if you take one of the oldest stories that we like still use in pop culture today, like Romeo and Juliet, right? Like if there have been million bajillion adaptations of Romeo and Juliet, but it still keeps to the soul of Romeo and Juliet, right?
Yeah.
Why is it? It's because people understand what Romeo and Juliet's about. They know that they can't change that one nugget, but you can set it in space. You can have it be about a family of robots and a family of pirates, and a robot and a pirate fall in love. You could do like, and then it's still Romeo and Juliet. We have Nomeo and Juliet. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Remember that one.
I did see it. It's not too bad.
I don't think I saw it, but I remember when it came out.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
We have a new Romeo and Juliet. I think it's a show. I think on Hulu.
The Rosalind. Yeah.
It's like about Romeo's ex-girlfriend or something.
Yeah. The girl he's dating.
I want to see that.
I want to see that too. But the problem with a lot of so Marvel tends to do that pretty well. They pinpoint their one quality. Like Tony Stark in the first movie is so different than Tony Stark in the comics at that point. Like Tony Stark in the comics was not snarky, he wasn't funny, he was kind of obsessive, but like you kept the nugget of like Tony Stark is a futurist. He's you know building his suit, and he has to atone for his past weapons manufacturing, right? Yeah. And then they let Robert Downey Jr. play with it, and they built Tony Stark and his story around that. And I thought that worked really well, as opposed to, like, what's an example of DC that crashes and burns because they don't adapt too much?
Steel.
Man of Steel? Oh, Steel.
No, Steel. Like, how far from the source material that is. That, like, a character who was created as a response to the death of Superman, they felt they could, I mean, aside Shaquille O'Neal's casting aside, like, the fact that they felt that they could remove that whole thing of it and still adapt the character. It's just, like, so far removed from it.
Right.
Like, that's, like, it's the fact that, like, the Sam Raimi stuff is disconnected because it doesn't have all the Marvel stuff, but like that there's a actual like Spider-Man in that, like stuff pulled from the comics, and I don't think we got that from Batman until Batfleck. Like I remember the trailer where he's like flying away from Doomsday from BVS. He's flying away from Doomsday and like hits a wall and then does his grapple gun. And it's just like, that is out of a comic. That's out of Batman the Animated Series. Like we've never seen a genuine Batman because it's been like Tim Burton hadn't ever read a comic book. Christopher Nolan looked down on the comic book form. Like, these like seminal moments.
I love those movies.
They're great movies because the strength of the character can survive the adaptation, but there is also a contempt from the filmmakers towards the source material. And it's just like, you don't need to be like a nerd about it.
Right.
You need to respect that it comes from another form. And it's also like the language of a Batman story is comic books.
Yeah.
Like that's moments and beats come from like that version of storytelling. And if you just throw it aside, you're going to miss like important beats of the character.
Right.
And I think DC, that's always been DC's problem, is like this like shame of the source material.
Classic. Yeah. Christopher
They-
Nolan was classically ashamed of the source material.
Yeah, like James Gunn's the first person to embrace it, I feel.
And
Like
make
they're
it better. Like
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
new things. Like with Guardians 2, with
But
those
like
characters.
the Suicide Squad and
The Suicide
Peacemaker,
Squad. So
like
good.
so
Peacemaker
good.
totally surprised me.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not expect to love that show as much as I did. I really loved the Suicide Squad. And then they said they were making a Peacemaker show. And I'm like, of all the characters from that movie, I couldn't care less about this character.
Yeah.
And then everyone
hated
was
him.
saying how good it was. I was like, okay, let me sit down. If somebody had just showed me the opening theme, that probably would have sucked me in a lot earlier because that was so hysterical.
Yeah.
They made me care about this man that I previously just absolutely hated.
I abhorred him.
And you were meant to hate him. Like
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
It was not like a daddy, like it's not like a dark crush sort of thing. It's not like a Venom thing where you just like love to hate him, like with Tom Hardy.
Yeah, he was
It's
just an awful person.
You were meant, James Gunn intended for you to hate him.
Mhm.
And
when
then
he
kind of
come
get a
in the
redemption
show.
story from
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's still a jerk, but he grew. He had genuine growth.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a proponent of the fact that like one sacrifice does not redeem a person. I think redemption is a lifelong process. So personally, this is a wild take. I don't think Tony Stark redeemed himself. I think he took the easy way out.
With dying?
Maybe it was necessary. It was necessary.
No,
I
don't-
that's a valid point.
I
It's a
don't.
valid point, but I also think killing Thanos is quite the win.
It is, but like
that can knock out quite the red in your ledger.
right.
I mean, he
Borrow
did,
phrase.
give up a future he had hoped for with a child, but he had also done things in his past before becoming Iron Man that had caused so much pain and destruction to others.
Yeah.
And as
And that's
Iron Man,
not-
he created
And
Ultron.
and as Iron Man. Well, yeah. Well, it's,
Ultron.
hi, it's me. I'm the problem.
Yeah.
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 But also
And-
Ultron, like Age of Ultron, more like a couple of days of Ultron. Like
Yeah.
he didn't do
Don't be a
as
Stark
much.
apologist.
Ultron didn't do as much damage as we want to hope he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
But
he tried
no,
to
I hear
fix
what
it
you're
with
saying,
Civil War, and Civil War was him just feeling guilty because somebody had finally called him out on, hey, this is what your business has done to me personally.
Yeah.
Officially, like repealed now in the MCU.
Yeah. The Sokovia Accords.
The
Yeah.
Sokovia Accords
Yes.
officially repealed. It's just like, well, way to go, Tony.
But like Shang-Chi and Wenwu, his father, like Wenwu saved him at the end and got like sucked like his soul out. I don't think that sacrifices makes up for centuries of
No.
conquest.
No.
No.
But so, Dimitri, do you believe there should be an Anakin Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi?
No. I think that
I mean, it should definitely not be Hayden Christensen, but you feel whole 100% no.
Oh, I mean, you want to bring up Star Wars? No, I don't think Anakin redeems himself. He sacrifices himself. He never redeems himself.
It's so last minute that he's like, you know what? For you, son.
Right. And
Yeah,
people
for
who
you,
say that
son,
Vader
like-
and Anakin are two different people, it's not dissociative identity disorder. It's not. He is Anakin with a couple drinks in him is Vader. You get what I'm like?
Yeah.
That's what it is. When you heavens forbid, I get trigger warning. When you hurt someone you love when you're drunk, that is still you. That's not you when you're drunk.
Absolutely.
That is you.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's not you when you're like Anakin and Vader aren't two different people. You when you're drunk, you're not a different person. Your inhibitions are let loose, right?
Yeah, you commit evil. It means you're capable of evil
Yeah.
at any moment.
You don't believe him when he said, "I killed Anakin Skywalker." You don't believe that.
Which part? Wait, who said?
In Kenobi, in the end of
Obi-Wan.
Kenobi, was just
Oh.
like, you didn't kill Anakin, I did.
Yeah, but that's
like, you're
just a person
like,
trying to cook.
But Anakin's saying that.
Yeah. It's just a person trying
like,
to
all
cook.
right, Anakin, like
He
you killed Anakin.
Who,
Thanks for telling
I
me,
feel like-
Anakin.
yeah, when he says, like, I killed Anakin, it's, I killed who you thought I was.
Right. That
there was
image,
this person that you believed I was.
That person is dead.
And I killed that. That person's gone. That person wasn't real.
Yeah.
Here's the truth.
Right. And just because, like, and we all make mistakes. Also, we all don't kill a bunch of children in a Jedi temple. But, like, we all make mistakes that we then atone for and try to redeem ourselves if we make mistakes when we're drunk. If that's what happens. If we make mistakes when we're angry or upset or whatever, we then atone for it. We try to, make up for it. But that's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And
there's a difference between, like, I'm drunk and I said something that was somewhat mean to a friend versus I'm drunk and I murdered people.
Right. Or I did something.
There's a big...
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I forget where I was going with this. Oh, Peacemaker, I think is what it was, right?
Yeah, Peacemaker.
Yeah.
So, like, Peacemaker
Redemption.
being alive, not being dead, not having to sacrifice himself, it's a lifelong process. I can accept that.
Well, his death was, like, not a noble sacrifice. Like, his death in the Suicide Squad was not noble.
No, it was a bad.
Like, it was both to stop him.
He was
from making
actively
a
trying to
terrible
murder someone
mistake,
else.
but also, like, a destruction of, like, his self-confidence with the smaller bullet comment coming and ironically coming back and biting him.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much of a full death of his previous self that, like, he's really crawling up from, like, he really got knocked down.
And I didn't want a Peacemaker show, but Gunn made it work. Gunn made it work.
He really did.
I have faith in Gunn. Here's an interesting thought that I want to pose to both of you. People are afraid that with Gunn overseeing the DC studios, that the whole universe then becomes a Gunniverse, right? Like, that all of DC's properties are then going to be Gunnified, right? That being said, I don't think that's the case. I think Gunn has a lot of wherewithal and self-awareness. Personally, I think that he wouldn't push his thing. But that's kind of been the problem with Marvel in the beginning and DC. DC was starting to become the Snyderverse. Everything was Snyder. Like, Wonder Woman, even though Patty Jenkins made it, like, had Snyder elements to it that, like, we're trying to link to that. The whole universe runs on the philosophy of Snyder. In the beginning of Marvel, you had the universe starting to run on a philosophy of Joss Whedon, and that Joss Whedon was weaved into this universe, and then they got rid of him, and then we were like, that is not what we're going with.
But then it became the Russos with the overarching sort of Kevin Feige thing.
Right.
Honestly, like, to answer your question, I feel that that's what DC's been missing.
Is Gunn everything Gunn?
No, just some sort of unifying thing, because even the Snyderversification of everything wasn't fully embraced. Like, that's the problem too. It's just like, I don't agree with the Snyderverse. I actively hate it. But it as a guiding principle, it would have better served a lot of stuff. Like, if they, like, embraced it fully.
What do you guys sorry, Caitlin.
Oh, I agree. I do feel like DC almost was lacking somebody like Gunn. And I don't think it's necessarily like Gunn is just going to insert himself into anything. Like you said, he's got that self-awareness. He's going to pick projects based on the comics. And because he's such a lover of comics himself, I have confidence that he will pick the right directors, producers, crew for the individual projects that they'll be making. Somebody who cares about we're making a movie on this character, so I'm going to hire that person because they care about that character.
Yeah.
So there will be, like, linked elements, but it won't just be like one guy.
Yeah.
What's very interesting about character creation in general is that you have to be able to boil down a character into its basic components in order to know what they're going to do next. So it's almost like the character writes the plot. In a lot of movies, especially Snyder, plot writes the character. Batman will make a choice that will be incongruent to anything else, but it will be because it serves the plot. But in real life, we make choices based on our own feelings and emotions and motivations. We don't go, what is the best thing? So that's like the way I play D&D is like I play it, my character chooses, even if it's a bad decision, my character determines what I do with it, right? Gunn seems to get that because every one of his characters in the Suicide Squad, whether they die in the first 5 minutes or not, has a motivation, has a personality trait that you could then take them out and you could be like, well, what if Javelin goes and works at a Starbucks? You know? What if, like, you could write a story about that and you would know, based off of how James Gunn was writing these small characters, what they would do next.
I want to know more about Nathan Fillion's character.
What's that?
I want to know more about Nathan Fillion's character.
He's
the
still
detachable
alive.
arm guy.
He's still alive.
Yeah, I want more. Put Nathan Fillion in something. I'm going to watch it.
And that's honestly the stuff that's really working for DC right now, in my opinion, are the James Gunn stuff, the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Harley Quinn, the cartoon show.
Yeah.
So good.
Gotta keep in mind the animation is also part of DC Studios.
Yeah. And James Gunn appeared in it this past season, so obviously that's safe under Gunn's regime. But also Doom Patrol, I think is like the cream of the crop of their live action DC universe.
Titans is lagging.
And you know, Titans is a hot mess of a show. I'm not writing it off, but
I hate it, but I love it.
I watch every episode.
Because I'm just happy. I watch. Yeah, I still haven't watched the last season of Doom Patrol. I've only watched the first two. I've watched everything Titan so far. I was excited to see Barbara.
And then you saw her.
I'm so I was so happy to see Barbara in any form because I just feel like she's so ignored. But when it comes to Titans, you know, it's like I have live action Dick Grayson in his Nightwing suit, but he doesn't feel like Dick Grayson.
He's not. He's Batman.
Fuck Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not even Batman.
Where's
light.
the quippiness? Where's the joy?
Yeah.
The joy. It's what's missing in DC Comics is about joy. And we get aspects of darkness and joy in Marvel. DC needs to follow suit. There is a joy. There is a hope, optimism. Even in the face of like dark side, Superman is going to inspire hope.
Like that's what's annoying about the darkness that we've seen in the DC films so far as they've tried to build a universe is like DC is not darkness. DC is light. DC is archetypes. DC is the modern version of mythology. It's gods. It is people with absolute powers. It's not humans who have augmented abilities like the Marvel Universe is. Like, not to downplay that, but like the stakes of Marvel are humanity with augmented powers and augmented realities, whereas DC is like straight up gods are bequeathing power to people. Like those are the stakes. And like the fact that they are like, no, it's about the dregs of humanity and showing the corruption of that. And like the fact that like right now the best performing movie they have is Black Adam. He's an anti-hero. It's like, you're going to build something off an anti-hero? Like, have you not fucking learned anything yet?
Yeah.
Like,
and then also, you know, with the Justice League, I feel like, you know, when it comes to the MCU, people always try to make the Avengers seem like a family, but at the end of the day, they're coworkers. As much as I would love for them to be a family, they're coworkers.
He's a friend from work.
Justice League, exactly. He's a friend from work. But the Justice League actually is a family. Those people truly love each other beyond their fighting side by side.
They have Thanksgiving together.
Yeah.
They have Christmas
together. They have Thanksgiving together, Christmas.
They visited each other's families.
Exactly.
They're like godparents and all sorts. Like it's entirely like
double dates.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Batman comics was the double date.
Selena and Bruce out with Lois and Clark, like
the best.
Yeah, and like that's what over in the CW, Superman and Lois
So good.
doesn't forget that. Like
It's
I
one of the
want to
best
talk
shows.
about Superman and Lois for a minute.
Yeah.
I am one thing I will always talk about is my personal favorites with Superman, because when it was announced that Henry Cavill was coming back and everyone online seemed to be celebrating, I was like, ah, really? Like, we need Henry Cavill back. But when I go and watch Superman and Lois, I feel like I'm watching Superman the animated series.
Yeah, you're actually watching Superman.
Yeah, like Tyler Hoechlin does such a perfect job of bringing that joy and that hope to the character, and very accurately portrays the duality of Clark and Superman. You know, when he's Clark around people that don't know he's Superman, he's a different character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe he's a different character.
Yeah.
I don't, when with Henry Cavill, and part of this is the writing, part of this is that I personally wouldn't have cast Henry Cavill even with the right writing. He puts on those glasses, he's still Superman, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
He just looks intimidating.
I can't blame Affleck or Cavill or really anyone under Snyder for their performance.
No,
they do the best they can, but like Snyder's giving them direction that I don't think works for these characters.
No.
So I did see. I will welcome Henry Cavill back, but this is his chance to prove that he's the Superman that I want. Or like, he has to be comparable to Tyler Hoechlin, who's doing a great job as Superman.
Fantastic. By the way, I met him at Comic-Con. So nice.
You took a picture with him, right?
I did. I paid for the photo op. It was 1,000% worth it.
I thought you were going to say $1,000. I'm like, holy shit.
No, he was like $100.
But no, like
it was so worth it. He was the second Superman I met while I was cosplaying as Spider-Man.
Also, he's the only Superman with stubble.
Yeah, but it works.
Do you know why? I went to see one of the panels at WonderCon.
Okay.
He has to do that to look older because he's not old enough to have kids that age in real life.
Oh, I know. He's like 33.
Yeah, is he 33?
Maybe 35.
But like, he's a young guy, though.
I Googled. I was like, oh, is he old enough for me to date?
He's 35, born in Corona, California.
I am older than Superman. Ugh.
Yeah. But that's why he has the stubble and the 5 o'clock shadows, because
interesting.
Because like, and Bitsy Tulloch is a little bit older than him. So
yeah, she's in her like early 40s.
He's facing like real threats. Like he goes up against the Steel first season, and like some other like the Kryptonians like and taking over bodies. Yeah, and then with the whole Bizarro arc in season 2, like he's going up against stuff that like is Superman level. Like it's not like the mistake of Superman Returns was like his big bad was an island. Like that was like, but like when you have someone who's like built in that like charming and sweet but like actually facing real stuff, you get to really see Superman. And like it's just I also just love it when he's not treated as Jesus, because that's such an affront to the fact that he was created by 2 Jews. Like
yes, like there's so much
he's Moses
Hebrew mythology within Superman. I mean, he's practically an allegory for Moses.
Right. Yeah. He's a guiding light, right?
Yeah. Also, just comics in general are inherently Jewish.
Yeah.
It's a very Jewish art form.
The only like
that's often forgotten when we adapt these characters to the screen.
Yeah, no, it's like the only like goy people are the only Gentiles are the people who are like running it, like the publishers.
Yeah. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love Wanda within the MCU. But the fact that she's not Jewish in those movies is such a valid criticism.
It's because they cut her ties with Magneto. It's such a detriment to the character.
It really is, I mean,
well, but they even like, aside from Judaism, like the fact that they don't embrace anything of her gypsy heritage.
Romani, like, right?
Romani, she's Romani and Jewish, and they don't embrace that.
And like, You see that like with the fact that Ben Grimm's never been given a Jewish depiction.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde's never been given a Jewish depiction. Like the characters who hang heavy as Jews in comic books have not been adapted faithfully in the comics.
Because it's considered a throwaway aspect of their character, right?
But
Like,
it's,
the only
it's
reason
not.
Magneto was Jewish in the movies is because they're like, ah, shit, we have to. Like,
I mean, his backstory is inherently linked
right,
to
but
the
I'm sure they
Holocaust.
would have ditched his Jewish heritage if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, and it's a shame because they would, and you're right.
No, it works
And
as a powerful.
they better not do
allegory.
that when they bring him into the MCU.
I don't think they will, but I think they're gonna have some other
No.
problems with merging the X-Men in, but that's a separate
Yeah.
separate
that's-
thing. What I wanted to real quick about adaptation is that like Superman and Lois touched on Bizarro and adapted Bizarro in a different way than what we've seen before, and it works. You didn't
works so
need
well.
Bizarro beat by beat. Superman the Animated Series also did a very similar thing where they gave us a version of Bizarro that wasn't the comics version, and it works. Like, these different origin stories for Bizarro are different, but Bizarro can be the same.
Superman's a character who has also been like the other like thing. We talked about this before with like Tony Stark and like how he's been adapted, reverse engineered into the comic books to be more like our Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Is like Superman was built by other medium, Daily Planet, Kryptonite,
Flight.
Perry White.
Oh, no.
Flight.
Yeah, Flight.
No, Flight is all created externally, not in the comic books first. Yeah, Flight was from the cartoons.
Yeah, he would
Kryptonite,
leap
Perry
a
White,
building in a
and
single bound.
Yeah, that's where the saying comes from, because he would only leap. He wasn't flying. And so it's Superman's unique in the sense of like all this media has come together to inform who he is as an individual character. So kind of no one has like a full like ownership of him.
No one medium. Because they're that's the idea of modern mythology, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we can also all agree on like what is and what isn't Superman, despite what medium it's put in.
Right. They made a change to the character Alexandra Alston in Superman and Lois season 2. In the comics, she's just another parasite. She's the second parasite. In the show, they're like, we'll make her a parasite, but she's not a parasite. You know?
Yeah, it was
they
such
were
an interesting
stick to the spirit
take.
of things. Yeah. You know? And that's important when we're doing adaptations. Now, I do want to make sure that we have time. The basic regime change that led us to DC Studios, there's been a couple of different dominoes that have been falling for a while. I want to say Victor Zazaz, but that's not his name. Zaslav is...
David Zaslav.
David Zaslav. I'm not a fan.
I've done so. Nope.
I'm not a fan. He comes from Discovery, and he's the Discovery and Warner Brothers merger. He axed a bunch of things in order to get tax write-offs. Because the way I view it is his ownership did not greenlight those projects. So it's like a lion when they're coming in and they kill the other cubs. They take the women and they kill the cubs of those women that were from a previous male lion. And
it's
that's
also
kind of what he's doing.
A one-time deal. Like that's what I've learned from it, is like this is only a tactic they can do this fiscal year because of the merger. This killing of stuff for tax write-offs is a one-time deal. So sucks for Batgirl and some of the other stuff that we've lost. But like once 2023 hits, the ship has sailed. Like, so you don't have to worry about this being a trend until the next merger, which seems to happen every 10 or so years for Warner Brothers.
Unless they do something
Someone buys them
and prove that they're a product worth having.
But I mean, like, we've gone from AOL, Time Warner,
AT&T.
I think AT&T was in there somewhere.
Like Discovery, like Warner Brothers has been passed around. So let's not forget that this might happen again in the near future.
Oh yeah.
Right. Batgirl being axed though sucks for so many different reasons. And yes, I guess, is it assuring that like once 2023 happens, there won't be any more axing, but they will be choosy with what project they're putting forward? I guess. But like, Kaylin, you're a
But
big
why did it
Batgirl
have to be
fan.
Batgirl? I am.
It doesn't make any
she's
sense.
my girl. She's my absolute favorite. And I made a video a while back talking about like why it feels honestly disrespectful. And, from a logical business standpoint, yeah, I get it. I know why they did things the way they did. But I think they did it at the expense of so many different people and groups of people. We were getting, first of all, this was supposed to be Leslie Grace's second film ever.
Really?
She's only ever
Second
done, yeah, her first film was In the Heights, which came out last year, which she was phenomenal in. So she really she's a newcomer on the scene.
Yeah.
And I could tell how much she cared about Barbara. She's released behind the scene footage from her time on set, which include, I can see in her dressing room, she has Batgirl comics. She's doing that research. And, the fact that they were doing the Batgirl Burnside suit, I was very excited about. And, not only did they cast Leslie Grace is a woman of color.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, Barbara Gordon's whiteness is not important to her character. So I was really excited to see a new group of people represented through a character that I love. And, when I got into reading Batgirl, it was when Barbara was fresh back as Batgirl. She had this surgery to restore her ability to walk, which, I know that's controversial, validly so, removing her physical disability. But something I found so powerful in her character is that, when she's fresh back as Batgirl, she's suffering severe PTSD. There's one in one of the early issues, she's confronted with a villain and she freezes when the guy points a gun at her because that's what caused her injury. And but she doesn't let it stop her. She has that moment. She accepts it, she gets past it, and she uses that moving forward to power herself and continue to grow and face her fears. She's facing her internal villains and her literal villains. And I feel like that's unfortunately a very relatable story for many people, especially women who have been through such intense trauma, to have to get back up and live their life and face those things that have harmed them again. And I wanted other people to experience that story and see a hero like her that haven't, because, the fact of the matter is when you make a movie, you make these characters more accessible to the masses. Not everybody's going to pick up a comic book, but people will go to the movies.
Yeah.
As much as I love comic books, I agree with you.
Well,
it's something that I'm always saying.
And there's the fact that like Emma Stone in Amazing Spider-Man, her appearances brought a new spotlight back to Gwen Stacy and sort of brought about the reappraisal that led to Spider-Gwen.
Right.
Like, she's such a cool character.
Yeah, Spider-Gwen is amazing.
Love her. One of the few Marvel comics I've gotten into.
But like it speaks volumes to the fact that like going into the Amazing Spider-Man films and hearing Gwen Stacy was cast, at the time it was just, well, what movie is she going to die in? Like that was, she's the girl who dies. That's her. That's French. That was her thing. Yeah, she was the original Fridge girl. Like
she was French,
and like that was her, like her thing. That same with like Jean Grey. Like it's a matter of like you have these story beats of like when is this going to happen for these characters, and it's like horrific, tragic, traumatic events that we seem to like. Oh, these are the demarcations of what these characters are, and putting them back into other media has allowed us to reappraise them. Has allowed.
And that's what I love about the Barbara Gordon stories, in The Killing Joke back in the 80s. The writers who I'm trying to remember, it was Alan Moore, right? Alan Moore. He didn't have a future plan for, okay, we're shooting Barbara through the spine, paralyzing her. He didn't have a plan for, okay, what happens with her next?
I don't even think she's confirmed paralyzed.
But
issue.
She was fridged.
Like no, I know. No, I'm not defending Alan Moore, but like to further your point of like how he did not even establish that. I don't even think he was simply bold
there.
enough. Yeah.
as a motivator for why Batman is going after the Joker. And she, she was just used as a plot device. And it wasn't until, a year or so later that other writers were like, well, wait a second, this is a cool character. Okay, so she's been shot, she's paralyzed. We can still do more with her. And, they turned her into the Oracle, and she was still a superhero from her wheelchair, which was so powerful and such important visibility for the disabled community.
Well, it's just like there's a lot of female characters who have been created reactionarily. Yeah. Like Barbara Gordon in Batgirl is created because the show wanted a female character. Mm-hmm. So that's why Barbara Gordon exists. She-Hulk was created because Stan Lee got paranoid that the TV show was going to make a female Hulk. And so he's like, well, I'll take care of that. Same with Spider-Woman. They were worried about the trademark for Spider-Woman when they were shopping the Spider-Man series for other mediums.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of female characters who've been created just to fulfill trademarks and to get copyright claims.
Yeah.
There's also the original Batwoman and Batgirl who were created just to prove that Batman and Robin weren't gay.
Yeah. Oh, they can't.
And then ironically, Batwoman is famously gay.
Yeah.
I want to read just a quick quote. This, by the way, this episode of the Keeg Talks is brought to you by a lot of quotes. I don't normally do this. It was a special episode. In 2006, you
don't normally research?
No, I mean, we do research, but we don't read quotes out loud like that. It's normally like, I think I remember this happening. And it's like, oh. So the quotes are, in 2006, during an interview with Wizard, Moore expressed regret over the treatment of the character, calling it shallow and ill-conceived. Moore stated before writing the graphic novel that he had asked DC if they had any problem with him crippling Barbara Gordon, who was Batgirl at the time, and if Moore remembers, Moore spoke to Len Wein, who was editor on the project, and following a discussion with then executive editorial director Dick Giordano, Len got back onto the phone and said, yeah, okay, cripple the bitch.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere.
Well, it's like the same with like Gwen Stacy. It was like Gwen Stacy was killed because they couldn't think of anything other for her to do other than get her and Peter married or broken up. And they didn't like either of those options. So they just said, well, we'll kill her.
Yeah. Credit to writer Kim Yale and John Ostrander, who were married. Yeah. It says, rather than allow the character to fall into obscurity, the two, Yale and Ostrander, decided to revive her as a character living with a disability. Because otherwise she would have just fallen into obscurity.
That's the other thing about, not to like sound like I'm discounting things, of like a lot of these characters that like big swings were taken on in the 80s were falling into obscurity. That's why the Flash was killed in Crisis, why Supergirl was killed in Crisis, because they were falling into obscurity. Barbara Gordon wasn't even Batgirl at the time. Like she had retired.
It says,
I thought she was Batgirl.
It says,
she had like a year or so ago.
DC had hired Barbara Kessel to write the Batgirl special specifically to retire the character to set her in place for the Killing Joke.
Oh, so they decided to retire her because the Killing Joke was coming.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, was coming up. Yeah.
Still upsetting. It almost feels like the axing of the movie very much parallels what the character has gone through in the comics.
A weird meta commentary on.
Yeah.
Well,
and unfortunately,
the movie, there shouldn't have been a reason. I understand the tax break, but they could have just released the movie. You weren't going to make money on the movie it was going to HBO Max to begin with. But
I don't know if you
they can't so much. Getting the tax write-off means they legally can never make any money off of it ever.
Yeah.
But how does that work with the streaming service?
They would make money off of it somehow.
They make money off of the streams and the subscriptions.
Yeah. I just always find it funny that like when I started reading comic books, the trinity of the Arrowverse, Green Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl were all dead. When I started reading comics.
Yeah.
Oliver Queen was dead, Barry Allen was dead, Kara Danvers was dead.
Hal Jordan was dead for me.
Hal Jordan was dead too.
And that's what I grew up with, right? It was Wally West Flash dealing with the death of Barry Allen and becoming his own man. Kyle Rayner having never met Hal Jordan, being just an independent last Green Lantern in all the universe. That was Kyle Rayner. Connor Hawke pops in. He's the illegitimate son of Green Arrow, who back then didn't know that Connor had been born even. There was kind of a passing of the mantle and development of those characters, or under the assumption that those other characters would never come back. Yeah. And then they came back.
Well, and that's like the thing that like what Marvel is having growing pains with, but accepting, is the fact that time goes on and stories progress. And like that's what's so frustrating about reading DC Comics is the reversion of Hal Jordan and Barry Allen all coming back after especially with Wally West, decades of work put into that character to make them independent, and to basically just make Dick Grayson the sole winner of that. Like, Dick Grayson, you are the only character who gets to evolve and grow, but you just get to tap out a Nightwing. You're not going to be anything more. I'm not going to make you Batman forever, maybe a year or two. But
I'm okay with him not being Batman.
No, me too. But like, it's the fact of like this stuff grows and evolves, and the fact that DC keeps trying to make it about the glory days, I think, is also what's making it detrimental.
It's funny because it's a universe built on legacy. Like DC has something that Marvel does not, and that's the concept of legacy pushing forward. Yeah.
If I were in charge of the DC movies, Barry would not be Flash. It would be Wally.
You could,
and that's in part because I.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, and that's in part because I grew up on Justice League, the animated series. That was my intro to superheroes, and I absolutely loved Flash in that show. It should be Wally.
But like, even just like the fan response of like the MCU with Spider-Man, of just like, okay, but when's Miles gonna come around? Like, legacy is something that fans really, really enjoy. The fact that people are still like, no, Wally's my Flash. This Barry, and like Barry Allen in the comics and in the TV show and the movie is very Wally-esque.
Yeah,
like they have been sort of pilfering Wally the same way they kind of pilfered Miles for some of MCU Spider-Man stuff. Genki.
And the school of the tech
school, the tech school, the fact that they go to a STEM school. But yeah, it's legacy is something that like fans have responded to well in the past. Like, it's only recently with this like reversion demand from the publisher and the sort of incel assholes where just like, oh no, this diversity change. Captain Marvel's supposed to be a dude. Like,
nobody
all that
cared
reaction.
About Marvel. Let's be honest. Nobody cared about Marvel.
Nobody cared about Genis either. Like, we have had a couple of dude Captain Marvels before Carol even showed up.
Yeah. The females of the Marvel family are, and we're talking Marvel's Marvel family, are clearly better. Phyla Vell, Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, Monica Rambeau, and Carol Danvers are all better characters than Marvel and Genis Vell. And Marvel Boy.
Yeah. Yeah, he sucks. He was only cool when he was like a weird bisexual on Young Avengers.
Now
he's like pansexual.
Yeah, he's only honestly the best thing they did with the character is he's dating Hercules now.
Oh, cool.
Marvel Boy and Hercules were dating in the recent Guardians of the Galaxy run.
I like that.
Oh,
other than I mean, makes me feel a little icky is the classic, and I'm not of this community, so I can't really speak too much of it, but like the old gay, young gay couple is kind of, I mean, I can only compare it to old straight, young straight.
It's also like, that's what's so infuriating. It's just like, oh, that's the hang up. And it's just like, Marvel Boy is a cockroach person, right? Like, and Hercules is not just he is millennia older. Like,
I'm not familiar with these characters.
But it's the same.
I know Hercules in mythology.
Yeah.
Marvel Boy, crazy Grant Morrison creation from the Marvel Knights imprint from the early 2000s.
Pocket universe
Well, he's like a
genetic
Kree soldier. He takes the name Marvel Boy just because he's sent to Earth and like learns of the lore and I don't even know if he calls himself Marvel Boy or if the moniker is bestowed upon him. Yeah, it's just weird Grant Morrison nonsense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's just like focus on that, like, or the fact that like, oh my god, like John Kent is bisexual. John Kent is an alien.
Right.
Nobody's talking
it's
about like
when DC finally confirmed that Wonder Woman is bisexual, and people were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, she's from an island of only women."
Yeah.
What were you expecting?
They're just waiting around
also,
for a
thank
man
you
to
for
show
finally saying it, DC. Like,
Right.
finally we have that.
Yeah.
It's weird how some people who are very against these characters being changed in any way, but let's say specifically for their sexual orientation, like, do you think Velma's just waiting around for the right man to sweep her off her feet? Is that kind of is Wonder Woman, like, she just has to wait around? All these Amazons on the island just have to wait around for the right man.
Wait around for the man. Yeah. And
like,
it's, also I think, when these stories start coming out, people are like, oh, you're just gonna suddenly make them gay. And it's like, no, coming out is a process. And now we're seeing that character go through that process of first the self-acceptance, and then you start to tell those close to you, and then you finally get to start living your life openly, which is not an easy process. And I think it's really important to see those stories finally being told. I mean, I just recently bought the DC Pride issue earlier this summer, and fantastic. Also, there's Kevin Conroy's story at the end, which is his personal story. It was so moving, so beautiful to see what he had to go through in the industry, which ultimately led him to the role of Batman. But then also reading the stories of these characters, it was fantastic to see all this visibility.
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy is so many people's that's my Batman.
He's my Batman.
And, like, to have like that, like, it's so funny, like the people who like, oh, why are you interjecting this stuff, like, because like Wonder Woman being bisexual, like, you understand that the basis of the character Diana Prince was based on this woman who was in a throuple with her creator and his wife.
In kink.
Yeah, kink and bisexuality. Like, she is queer and kink from the jump.
Even if it wasn't officially said by DC until like 2016, she's always been bi.
Right.
And it's so clear that she has.
I mean, the Comic Code Authority did hurt a lot of things.
Well, it was that and the fact that William Moulton Marston died like 8 years into it, and the person they brought in was very much not him. Kind of like he was like Gary Conway being brought in to replace Stan Lee. Just like, you are coming from a completely different mindset of the original writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, as we like, as we wind things down, I want to talk about the future. What these DC studios, like, what's on the slate for the future? Mm-hmm. What can we hope to see with this change?
Before you start, what's unavoidably coming out? Like, what's already on the way that is
already on the way out,
impacted?
We've got Shazam 2.
We have Shazam 2, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah.
I feel like Shazam is not talked about enough because, honestly, it was one of the single best movies DC has put out.
Yeah.
I think of all time.
I agree.
And
I love it.
It's seeing it with my dad was one of the best experiences because my dad grew up reading, he was originally called Captain Marvel. My dad grew up reading Captain Marvel comics because, he was a boy, and my dad was like, he saw himself in him because he was a kid who was a superhero. And getting to see my dad's favorite character come to life, and my dad loved that movie. It was such a fantastic experience.
It's a good movie.
It's so good.
Shazam 2 is slated for next year. So let's just say for next year. Shazam 2 comes out, Aquaman 2 comes out, Blue Beetle's supposed to come out, and Flash is supposed to come out. Now,
but Blue Beetle, how much has been done? Is Blue Beetle filming?
Yeah. There's set photos.
There's set photos. It's supposed to come out next year.
Yeah, I'm hoping it gets a theatrical release, but I think it's getting HBO Max release.
I think it's getting a theatrical release.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm hoping because
I think it is.
Like for the community that it's about, it matters, and it sucks.
Exactly.
We don't get Batgirl, but literally
another reason I was mad that Batgirl wasn't going to be on. If Batgirl had come out, it should have not been on HBO.
Yeah.
That needed a theatrical release.
Yeah. But at
and Blue Beetle
least they're willing to experiment. Because it would have been a tough sell for them to be like, let's put it in theaters. Like, I would have gone and seen it, but like, Black Panther almost didn't even like they had to push for Black Panther to get made, you know?
Yeah.
But the ones that are in development are Joker 2, Foley Ado, which is supposed to be a musical with Lady Gaga, right?
Yeah, I imagine that's not impacted.
Mixed feelings about that one.
Whatever, they can do whatever. I don't want it, but whatever.
I didn't. Joker was Joker in name only, personally.
Yeah, I never saw it actually. I never saw the movie.
Really,
I didn't want to
because
it was Joker and Joker in name only.
It was enjoyable, but not.
Yeah. Currently being developed though, which probably won't be released in 2023. Joker 2, no, that's pretty much it. What's I
they have nothing.
List.
They have nothing.
Penguin HBO Max show.
But that's been problematic even before this.
What, Penguin HBO Max?
Well, because that was supposed to be like a movie, and then it became a series, and like Matt Reeves left it. Like that's
wow.
That hasn't.
I don't know. I don't think so.
The Penguin series hasn't been a smooth ride so far.
It's supposed to be.
I also don't know why we needed
Reeves.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't. For me, Penguin was not a standout part of that movie. So I didn't leave the theater thinking, I want to know about him. I don't know.
Penguin would stand up because you're like, oh my God, it's Colin Farrell.
I liked him. He was a different type of Penguin.
But I didn't. I liked him. I thought it was a good, interesting take on the character. But I don't see the need for a show about him.
Yeah, more so than Peacemaker. I don't know what the story is you hang on him.
Yeah,
supposedly it takes place right after the Batman. So it takes place a month, and it has to deal with his criminal empire, dealing with the flooding in Gotham and whatnot. Some people say Black Mask will be involved. Not too sure. Okay. Matt Reeves will be co-producing.
I remember the problem was that it was originally the
executive producer
show, and then it became a Penguin show.
As far as I remember, they were just gonna do series based off of Catwoman, Penguin.
Well, they were gonna do a GCPD.
I would love that was the
series. But that one fell.
Zoe Kravitz was amazing.
Yeah, she was great.
So, Penguin seems to be the only thing that's actively being in development right now, but obviously not for.
And then I thought the Green Lantern.
Now
that one just got
announced.
Well,
it's been announced.
Well, it got announced for it's being taken back to square one,
which is which is going to be Jon Stewart, which I agree
as it should.
I think it was always going to be Jon Stewart.
It was going to be Alan Scott and Guy Gardner.
Oh, okay.
Which is like, why are we tiptoeing around Jon Stewart and not using him? I think it's because Snyder wanted him.
But also, Jon Stewart now first of all, I grew up with Jon Stewart as Green Lantern.
Jon Stewart and Kyle Rayner are my two faves.
But I feel like John is he's one of the most interesting Lanterns, maybe it's just because Phil LaMarr just absolutely nailed the character, but he was so cool. He's, that military stoic guy, but he also has a lot of heart.
Yeah.
But I will say
he's such a cool character.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a roadie. In the sense of, I really like him when he is co-lead, but I don't know how he'll fare on his own.
He's one interpretation away from getting his most iconic.
Yeah, but
I mean?
John, I'd be a little bit more interested in like a Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, Captain Winter Soldier Falcon kind of show, because I think done wrong, that stoicism makes him cold. And having someone around to warm him up is just the one thing I always feel. Because I loved the Jon Stewart episodes when he's with Wally.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just gonna say the same
or
thing.
when he's with Hot Girl. When
Yeah.
he's with
Yes. Him and
um,
Hot Girl are. I honestly, if they make this show, I want them to bring her in because it worked so well in the show.
I think they're trying to steer away from that because they've been doing that in the like in the
No,
comics. It's
no,
specifically a JLU thing, and I love
yeah,
it there.
no.
But like,
I know.
it's one that has
I'm a
yeah.
Wonder Bat fan because of that show as well. So
and that's something
like,
that like the comics don't really like to do.
But the Wonder Bat has had some flirtation in the comics.
they've
Very
teased us
little.
in the comics about
Yeah.
that.
Enough though. But like Hot Girl John Stewart is exclusive to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Did you guys read the last year they came out with a mini series called Justice League Infinity?
Yeah.
That took place right after. Did you guys read that?
Yeah.
I just finished reading it a couple weeks ago.
It wasn't
and I
that
love
good.
that I liked it.
I'm also not a big fan of like I'm a big fan of sparingly using the multiverse. But when you hinge a whole thing on the multiverse,
Yeah. It was
tough.
maybe I was just excited to see those versions of those characters again.
I'm with you.
But I see what you mean. Overall, I enjoyed it. I kind of love that it was like the power of love between Wonder Woman and Batman that kind of brought everything back. And
Yeah.
but like that's
once again, I'm a Wonder Bat fan, so I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we got John finally accepting his feelings for Shaira and that.
Yeah. John Stewart and Kyle Rayner would be a really good duo.
Yeah.
That's what I would love
like a
to
Riggs
see.
and Murtaugh.
Kind of, yeah, in a buddy cop sort
John
of way.
Stewart's too old for this shit.
No, but not John Stewart being too old. But I also think that it also hinges on who they cast. If they cast a charismatic actor as John Stewart, then we will get our iconic John Stewart that we've never really had. Because the most iconic John Stewart we've had is in Justice League the cartoon. Because he is rather middle of the road when it comes to the comics.
Yeah.
He does his thing. It's what the plot wants. But I can't tell you how John Stewart is in the comics. Like, I can't sum him up. It's very hard.
I like the gruff warmness to him that Phil Lamar brought to him.
Yeah.
But I do think the one thing I would say is that he is more of a Idris Elba, David Ramsey. Like David Ramsey as John Diggle was a good casting too for him. Like he is more of a broad shoulder guy than like a Daniel Kaluuya. Like Lakeith, like he's. I don't want to see a svelte guy cast as him. I want to see a broad shoulders, like a Terry Crews almost. Like that's what I want to see from John Stewart.
Mike Coulter, who played
Mike Coulter, would be fucking great.
He would be
like,
fantastic.
Yeah,
So
I don't want Idris Elba as John Stewart. Idris Elba's a different type, and I
want Idris Elba, but I also just kind of want Idris Elba in everything.
Yeah, that's true.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like a broad shoulder guy, like a big guy.
Yeah,
I don't want to see. Like I'm worried that they're gonna get a little bit of a more svelte guy to play him, especially if it's gonna be by himself. Or if they make him like younger, like I'm really worried that like he should look more. He should look more.
I'm going Mike Coulter.
Yeah, Mike Coulter.
I literally posted a video yesterday saying if I was in charge of the DCEU, here's who I'd want to play these characters, and I said Idris Elba for him, but I'm taking it all back. Mike Coulter, you're right.
Mike Coulter would be really great. That would be really good casting.
Mike Coulter is one of the few men that like you look at him, and you're like, you could hug him. You could squeeze him. You can kiss him. He can create he can like be a family man.
He could also crush your head and like
right.
Like he looks like he has diamond skin. Yeah. Like that. I think that's why also I would want a big like him to be physically imposing is because I'd want that to do the legwork of implying that he is gruff.
Yeah.
Like I want him to physically imply that, and then as we get to know him, we see the heart behind him. We see the lack of fear. We see the conviction that led to a Green Lantern ring choosing him. But when your initial impression of John Stewart should be, and this was kind of the point, like DC, I forget who the writer was that created Jon Stewart, but it was sort of like DC trying to make like you want a big angry black man, like you got one. Like he's one of the first superheroes to have a public identity. He very early in his career was just like, I'm Jon Stewart, I'm the fucking Green Lantern, fucking what's up.
I mean, it was a specific socio-political commentary for him not to have a mask and to be a visible black superhero.
Yeah, and I would want to see them remember that as well with the character. Also, Chris Williams, who played Black Lightning.
Yeah,
that's a Jon Stewart looking guy.
I loved Chris Williams as Black Lightning. He was a teacher. He was a man of his community. He got angry when he needed to get angry. He taught lessons.
Black Lightning was very, very well done.
The level of nuance in that character.
Yeah,
it's unseen in a lot of things, you know. That's why it does hinge on. By the way, Chris Williams is an alum of my college.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I haven't met him in person, but I kind of want to figure out when the next alumni hangout is and see if he shows up. But like, okay, so we got.
I don't have any cool alum.
Oh, I'm sure you could like. I'm sure there's.
We have one very famous alum that has been very publicly canceled.
Kevin Spacey.
No. Bill O'Reilly.
Oh.
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, he went to my alma mater.
Oh,
and
no, I'm sorry.
His name was removed from everything on our website, and like I think it went down in 2016. I was still there. I was a senior at the time, and they took his name off everything.
We have Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard came out of Fullerton College.
Oh, that's a cool one.
Yeah. And I forget who else. There's one other.
My sister's school has Judge Judy.
Oh, interesting.
Good alumni.
We also know that they have just announced that they're gonna bring Henry Cavill back for a Man of Steel sequel. And shout out to Dr. Derpy. We can't get to your breakdowns, but they also announced that there's going to be The Batman sequel, but it's going to be 2025 or something, like 2024 or 2025 when it finally comes out. Dr. Derpy. I
feel like 3 years is fairly standard.
But it came out in 2022, and then.
Yeah, Batman came out this year in March. So I feel like, 3 years from now is kind of standard for sequels.
I think 2 years is standard.
2 years, 3 years.
If you want a crap
3 years
sequel.
is for Star Wars. Star Wars.
Well, yeah.
3 years is supposed to be. That's why they fucked up the sequel trilogy, because it was 2 years.
Yeah.
I like the sequels.
Dr. Derpy just
Good thing you brought that up at the end.
Dr. Derpy wants a...
well, they weren't perfect.
Dr. Derpy wants an Arkham Asylum Batman movie for his thing.
Yes. I agree.
It's a good idea. That
being said,
I don't know where the Batman is leading to, because I feel like it's gonna be Batman a little bit more in the public eye, right?
Which I like.
It's a very grounded Batman, very realistic. The one thing I would like from those movies is more of the Bruce Wayne persona.
Yeah.
When the one time we saw him as Bruce Wayne, I'm sorry, that was Batman.
Yeah.
He just wasn't wearing a mask at that point, but that was Batman. And to me, Bruce Wayne very much, and that's what I think the Dark Knight trilogy did really well, is when he was out of the mask, he was a totally different person.
I think my input is that what I would like to see is that he hasn't developed the Bruce Wayne persona, and I almost want to see a reversal. Normally in a superhero movie, we're seeing them develop their superhero persona.
Yeah.
But I would love for him to spend a movie developing a Bruce Wayne persona in the way people develop a superhero persona.
I'd love that.
I'm calling it the Batman duality. We get Harvey Dent. We get this like
that would be amazing.
Kind of mirror image of dual personas with
Well, that's what I like. Like, I think where the Batman succeeded for me was the fact that like it showed a dark Batman and showed him evolving from that and realizing like how he's so much at the brink. And I think that would be the natural progression, is because he kind of realizes that how little Bruce Wayne has been utilized.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
this movie really kind of highlights for him that Bruce Wayne, even like in his most pessimistic view of the idea of Bruce Wayne, it's like he could still be a useful tool. Like if
Yeah.
you had been Bruce Wayne, you could have figured out a lot of this stuff a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have unraveled this plot before the movie even started had you been more Bruce Wayne.
That being said, I love the Batman, and I love the very specific thing in it. Bruce Wayne would not be like Bruce Wayne from his point of privilege would not be able to solve the case, the last part of the case, without Officer Martinez. And the reason is because he does not know what that carpet tool is for.
Yeah.
He would never have known.
No.
In his many years of training, blue collar work, not a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's another way that evolving Bruce Wayne can become a good storyline and a good story point, and sort of having that challenge of how to incorporate an active, fully fleshed out Bruce Wayne into this persona of the Batman that he's finally calibrated properly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he becomes like the symbol he's wanted to be, but didn't realize that he wanted to be. He achieves at the end of the first movie,
Right.
like leading those people out. Like, I think my favorite scene from that movie is when he loads that person into the airlift and they're like pulled away from the helicopter.
And they hold his hand.
Yeah. And then he looks up.
It shows the humanity of this character that,
Yeah.
Usually, Batman is portrayed as like, we know he's a man. He doesn't actually have superpowers, but he's this scary monster almost to Gotham while also being its protector. And I loved that scene because it really just showed what a human he is.
And I think it's shown the lack of understanding of the source material of only taking that idea halfway. Of like, yes, Batman is a monster to Gotham. He is this terrifying thing to the people who do wrong in Gotham.
But everybody's scared of him.
But at the heart of him, he's a scared little boy.
Yeah.
He's a boy crying in the alley, and he needs to remember that. And the people, like, when Batman's done right, is the people who remember that. And again, DC Animated Universe, the
Harley
Justice
Quinn
League episode, just everything.
That episode of Harley Quinn where Harley went into Bruce's psyche was one of, I think, the best Batman stories I've seen.
Yeah.
It delved into, at the core of it, he's a scared boy.
Yeah.
I think Harley Quinn is an amazing example of like, they didn't have to do all that. They don't.
No.
But like, it's a great example of like, any genre, any tone of movie is not hurt by being smarter.
Yeah. And Harley Quinn's great because it's this very like goofy adult humor, but also it has so much heart, so much commentary.
Yeah.
The characters aren't surface level in any way.
Yeah.
They're so complex.
Yeah. I just want to point out that under the Gunn Safran contract, they're contracted for 4 years. 4 years, four. And Gunn will be directing a movie, at least one.
Okay.
And Joker 2 will not be produced by Gunn and Safran.
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
And also, we are unsure on whether the Reeves projects will be run by Gunn and Safran. So, other than that, so DC Studios, because it existed before the contracts, the contracts are.
So they're basically entering into a Marvel type deal where the A-list characters are off limits.
It's just Batman.
Batman, but then who knows if the Henry Cavill stuff is going to be looped in.
I believe that's under them.
No, I think that's going to continue to be like DCEU.
It's not going to be Snyder. Well, I mean, it can continue with that, but it's not. It's still Gunn and Safran overseeing those projects.
Yeah.
But then you also have the comment of Kevin Feige saying he's supportive of James Gunn, but also he better like maintain his Marvel stuff till May.
Well, yeah, but if he
Well,
will.
yeah. Well, he's
Wait,
got
wait,
at
the
least
Guard-
one more move.
He has
He's
Guardians
got,
of the
he's got to
Galaxy
release
coming out.
Guardian 3 next summer.
Yeah, he will. That's not a.
Yeah.
They're contractually
No, I know,
obligated.
but it is also like the fact of like he's really he's not going to really be able to put his full focus on everything until this upcoming summer.
But he starts November 1st.
November 1st, but he's gonna split
2
time
days.
until June 1st,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then
probably.
But that's why Peter Safran is doing a lot of the executive
Yeah.
producing stuff.
yeah.
Done
Yeah.
by a
Yeah.
creative guy.
But- and honestly,
Yeah.
Saffron being like the fact that it's a package deal makes me feel a lot better
They can
because
cover each other's asses.
well, just
Yeah.
having been involved in a lot of theaters, creatives very rarely make good executives.
It's true.
Very rarely make good producers.
Yeah.
So having someone with that mind is just like, okay, you have someone who has a good idea and knows how to honor these characters properly while making entertaining content. But you also have a producer who can handle the day-to-day and be in meetings and be in boardrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also James Gunn doesn't live in LA either.
He'll move.
No, he's not going to. He has a house in
Where is he?
Colorado, I think.
Oh,
He does
I
not
mean, I
live.
don't
Yeah,
blame him.
he
Colorado's beautiful.
He is settled outside of LA.
I look forward to a more cohesive nature of the DC universe. Something
Yeah.
that, he'll make things make sense. And I think he'll understand what the heart of these characters are. Even if he's not directing it himself, like he'll understand the heart of the character and then make sure that it kind of follows that vision.
Well,
You need
and
an
maybe-
overlying vision.
Maybe we'll also see a building up of second tier characters, which has
Yeah,
been Marvel's
yes.
Marvel's real strength throughout has been making you give a shit about their B squad.
That's why Marvel
Yeah.
isn't running to produce X-Men content yet, because they're like, we're good. Because the
They're-
X-Men
they
can
were
run
the
it's
itself.
like- Yeah, they
Yeah.
they literally can survive 3 more phases without the X-Men touching really a thing.
Right.
I mean, we got Professor X and we got the Wolverine Deadpool
Yeah.
stuff. But no, like honestly, it feels like X-Men are being primed for phase 7.
Which I'm cool with.
Yeah,
As
Yeah,
an
I'm
X-Men
totally
fan,
fine with that.
I'm a huge X-Men fan. I'm cool with them waiting on it. Because also, not a big fan of the multiverse saga, but that's just me.
I'm starting to become an X-Men fan, finally watching all the movies.
I will set you up with some key comics. I think
Okay, cool.
X-Men
I just watched Apocalypse the other day. I haven't posted my video on it yet, but I just watched Apocalypse and I enjoyed it. I'm starting to really enjoy the X-Men movies.
All right. All right.
If you like Apocalypse, then
I like First Class
you'll
best.
be satisfied by X-Men content.
Good.
Yeah,
I know. I
it'll
heard
blow
that
your mind.
Apocalypse wasn't popular, but I enjoyed it.
Dark Phoenix is worse. New Mutants is worse.
I
Days of
hear
Future
that.
Past is my favorite.
Days of Future Past was fantastic.
Logan's the best.
I didn't love. Oh, I've seen Logan. That's one of the few Deadpool. The 2 Deadpools and Logan were the only ones I had seen before I started doing my full okay, I'm going to sit down and watch all the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
I didn't love the original trilogy, but that's because it kind of harkened back to what we were talking about earlier. How I felt like I was thrown into this movie having not seen the origins for the characters.
Yeah.
But with First Class, they took that time to introduce the characters, and I loved that movie.
Sorry, keep going. Give me a sec.
You're fine. So I've been making a little series on my TikTok page of me going through all the X-Men and watching them, and
Have you gone through
I've been
any
enjoying
of
it.
Have you gone through any of the cartoons series yet?
No, I've just been watching the movies.
Okay.
So I'm watching in release order. So I've seen all the original trilogy. I've watched the first 2 Wolverines, and then I've watched First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse. I think the next one, I have to look up what the next movie is. I think the next one is Logan, which I've seen, but I'm going to watch again.
Yeah, it would be it's Logan, the Dark Phoenix, then New Mutants.
Then New Mutants, okay. And I'm going to watch the Deadpools again because those are fantastic.
Yeah, Deadpool's amazing. I
don't need a reason to watch Deadpool.
My nephew, he's gonna be 9. He was Deadpool for Halloween. He's gonna be Deadpool for Halloween tomorrow. My sister called And it's like, is Deadpool okay for like this young? And it's like, well, the Ryan Reynolds movies, you shouldn't show him. But
No.
he's also in an episode of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like he can, and like when I started reading him was like the Joe Kelly 90s stuff, and he wasn't nearly as like upfront and kind of psycho, and like it was more like Looney Tunesy, like breaking the fourth wall, a lot more silly than like crude.
Okay.
And so
there
yeah,
is
like
stuff for him to be able to read.
yeah, there's content for him to like it not be weird for him to be dressed up as this character.
Yeah, there's these girls that growing up I used to babysit, and they're now teenagers, which of course just like terrifies me. But the younger ones, like 12 or 13, and they love the Marvel movies, and we were talking about it, and the younger one was like, yeah, but my dad won't let me watch Deadpool. I'm like, your dad's right. You should not be watching Deadpool yet.
Yeah.
But welcome back.
Yeah. Thanks. What were we talking about?
We were talking about Deadpool and the appropriateness of those for children.
Oh, yeah. But again, bringing up interpretation is that, like, Deadpool can exist in a PG cartoon, and he can exist
That's what I
in
was saying, yeah.
one.
I was saying, like, he's in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
An episode
And
or
he
two
works
of those.
just as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just kind of what you want out of it. I want to thank you both so much for coming on this episode and talking about everything DC Studios. I feel like anyone listening to this is like caught up, which is kind of good because there's a lot going on right now. And I'm sure after we finish this episode, they're going to announce, they're going to be like, because we haven't heard anything about Wonder Woman 3.
I want more Wonder Woman.
I
always want more
I
Wonder
did want more Wonder Woman before 1984 happened.
1984. I had such high hopes for it.
I'll be honest. I enjoyed 1984. There's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it, but I'm also a very easy person to please. So while there's a lot of things I would have done differently with that movie, at the end of the movie, I had enjoyed myself. Same thing with the first Suicide Squad. Was by far not a great movie, but I still walked out of the theater having enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
While I didn't do that with Batman versus Superman or Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I've actually never seen the whole movie yet because I couldn't finish it.
Oh, good.
I didn't like it at all.
it lost a lot of what makes Superman Superman. So that was tough. That was a little tough, you know.
I did see a quote from Henry, though, saying that with his return, he's looking to bring that more hopeful, joyous aspect into Superman, which makes me cautiously optimistic for his return.
Well, and to be fair to Snyder, the action, we had never seen true Superman action or what he was capable of. This was the first movie to finally deliver on that.
Yeah.
It just was so excited to deliver on that it completely botched the character.
Yeah.
It's just
sorry.
Oh no, like it's just like Superman would be saving people, and like that was one of my favorite things about the Brandon Routh one is in the creation of his arch nemesis, the Kryptonite Island. Like Metropolis is like suffers an earthquake and all this stuff is happening, and Superman is just literally one of the action set pieces is him flying around just saving people. All the various ways he's saving people, like using his heat vision on falling glass so it turns to sand, outrunning a fireball so he can blow it back with his super breath. Like in the robbery scene where he gets shot in the eye and it just bounces off. Like there's such cool stuff of like this is what Superman's capable of, but Snyder just was like completely lost the heart of it in trying to achieve that scope. But it was the first time we'd actually seen like, okay, it's not Superman, it's not Chris Reeves fighting himself in a garbage dump.
Yeah. Somebody brought up that Superman never punches first. He always asks questions first. Like he won't blitz somebody unless he knows who that somebody is. So he'll blitz Doomsday after knowing Doomsday. But if a random like
does he do that in Snyder? Is that maintained in Snyder?
I don't know.
I'm curious about that.
I have to rewatch again. But we don't have much time to talk about
anything
more.
Yeah. No, that's.
But again, we're kind of over time anyway.
That's after show homework.
Yeah, something's gonna get released tonight, and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, talk more about this.
We'll have to dedicate a whole episode just to Superman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I want to thank both of you so much for coming on the show and taking time out of your day, especially a day that may or may not have Halloween stuff later tonight. So, thank you so much for coming on this. Trevor, where can we find you online for the people out there?
You can find me on social media at TrevorCopter. Currently debating whether or not I'm going to keep my Twitter account for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Same.
But at all the other good social media, you can find me at TrevorCopter.
Okay, cool. Yeah, anyone out there listening to the podcast, they obviously can't see our display, but if you're watching us live, you're watching us on twitch.tv/The Keeg Show or youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Obviously, you can see all of our stuff. But, if you're listening to us, you're listening to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. However you digest us, thank you so much for digesting us. Kaylin, where can we find you on social media?
So I've got 2 different Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
My main account, which is also where I post my cosplay content, is Comics by Kaylin. Kaylin is Cailin. And then I also have an art account. I've kind of worked in all sorts of different mediums, but recently I've been doing digital illustrations that are very much in the style of traditional ink and watercolor of primarily superheroes. And that account is Art by Kaylin D. And then you can also find me on TikTok at Comics by Kaylin.
Awesome.
Where I do a lot of talking about the characters and movies and whatnot and fun cosplay stuff.
Yeah. I like your cosplay.
Thank you. I'm very new to it, and I feel like I've just been welcomed so quickly in by the community, and I wish I had gotten into it sooner, but I'm enjoying it. It's such a neat creative outlook, it's such a new way from outlet. Yeah. So, such a cool, unique creative outlet now for me. I'm learning all sorts of new skills with, some of my costumes I buy, but, learning how to work with craft foam to create my bat cowl was one of my favorite things I did this summer.
Yeah. I love your Batgirl cosplay. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. And I just made my Wonder Woman for Halloween, and so I've been posting some Wonder Woman content.
I don't think I saw. Did you post your Wonder Woman costume?
I have a couple videos up of Wonder Woman. I filmed a ton today, which the lipstick is left over from that. But my Wonder Woman is very specifically the DCAU Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Because that's where I fell in love with these characters, and I see so many different Wonder Woman cosplays, but they're usually Linda Carter or the Gal Gadot one, and I wanted to see the animated DCAU take on her. So, I've filmed a bunch of stuff today, but I have a couple posted already in that.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you both of you so much for coming on the show. For anyone out there who wants to follow the Keeg, you can find us on social media at The Keeg Show. TikTok and Instagram are our 2 biggest ones, especially if you want to keep updated with what our schedule is like and what we have. Now, the Keeg Talks today was about DC Studios, but normally it is every other week, and we talk about a different topic. That being said, I think we might be on a weekly schedule because so much is coming out. So I'm gonna give you a hint at what's to come. Next weekend, we're gonna talk about Rings of Power. The weekend after that is Wakanda Forever, Black Panther movie coming out. After that, we're gonna be talking about Star Trek. After that, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. After that, Stargirl Season 3. After that, Pokemon. After that, Avatar Way of Water. Then we have a breather for the weekend of Christmas, and then we end the year with the best of 2022. We're going to just do kind of get a couple of people on here and talk about everything that happened in 2022. We're going to talk about it all. So we got a lot. And the Keeg Talks might be a weekly show starting from next week. Or not next week. It's definitely a weekly show from next week. But from next year onwards, we might do a weekly show with this. So expect more content. We also have our after shows that we do. We just finished up the She-Hulk after show. We have the Andor after show that has a couple episodes left. And then every Thursday we have Comic Talk, where we talk about that week's releases of comics. So we do a lot. But definitely anyone out there, stay tuned. We're going to have more geek content on the Keeg. So, Instagram and TikTok. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, but right now We'll see. We'll see how it goes. You can find us on Twitch and YouTube at /The Keeg Show. Twitch.tv/The Keeg Show. YouTube.com/The Keeg Show. So we're all over the place, but trying to do as much content as we can. But thank you, Trevor, and thank you, Kaylin, so much for coming on here and giving your commentary. Thank you to that one wizard kid out there. Thank you to Dr. Derpy out there. Thank you to Manny Reads Comics out there for being here. Once again, I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and this has been the Keeg Talks DC Studios, because the DC hierarchy of power has changed. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Super